Everyone, just a bit of a warning. Throughout the recording of this video, we are going to be talking about some pretty heavy topics regarding sexual assault.
Yeah, just general sex abuse and violence are going to be topics that come up in this review because of the nature of the film. So if any of those things are things that you're particularly sensitive to or don't feel like you can, hear discussion about them for your own reasons, this is probably not the video to watch. Just, sort of viewer discretion is advised.
And if you are the victim of any of these crimes, please seek out help. Go to a trusted source. But yeah, just fair warning. We're going to move into the review now. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Media, The Alien Collection, where we cover the first three Alien movies leading up to Alien Romulus. And now we're at the point in the franchise where things get a bit, let's just say, dicey. Yeah.
So hey guys, do you remember Ellen Ripley, this character who we set up as confident, calm, collected, and generally very capable of doing things? You know what she should be for the third movie in our franchise? That's right, say it with me, a victim! What great progression for this character that you've spent multiple movies getting invested in. This is awesome. I love Alien 3.
Or is it Alien Cubed?
It's Alien, the one that can suck my dick. This movie's bad.
It's a cubed.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, admittedly, I watched this film, and I think, it has moments and elements that are interesting. More towards, the alien lore, specifically regarding the xenomorph. This is the film that introduces the idea that, depending on what the xenomorph, facehugger impregnates, it takes on the host's features. Yeah. So in this film, at least in the theatrical cut, it takes on the elements of a dog.
Yeah, no, the dog xenomorphs were awesome. I did like that.
I thought that was a really cool way to kind of, one, make the lore more interesting, and it also opened up the idea of hey, what if the alien impregnated this? What if it impregnated that? And then ultimately we got Predalien eventually down in the franchise.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I think those elements are cool in the film. I'll say this. I know we don't like the story about what Ellen Ripley is in this film. However, I do think, again, Sigourney Weaver just kicks ass.
Yeah, Sigourney Weaver is great. I think that this movie it feels like such a spit in the face, contrary to how Ripley has been handled in other movies, to subject her to actual on-the-nose, sexual violence in the way that they do in this movie.
Yeah.
It feels like it takes things that the other movies were handling pretty deftly as subtext and makes it into this awkward, garish sort of text that takes so much of what was good about the original movies and just sort of imitates something that was good by being I will just say the same words and naturally it will be as good, without understanding that the way that those things were put together was done very intentionally. And it feels like this movie lacks the dexterity of narrative to handle these issues in a way that feels respectful, and it comes off as really boorish and crude in a way that it makes me sick.
I will say, this is the first time me watching this film, and I knew going in about what happens to certain characters from Aliens, and back to what you said about this film just being a real spit in the face. Yeah, that's kind of the point of this film. The point of this film, at the beginning, is just hey, you remember those characters you really liked at the end of Aliens? Guess what?
Fuck them, yeah. I have this problem with other pieces of media, but it feels spiteful.
It really does.
For no reason.
And knowing, what David Fincher's kind of directorial, what he went on to do, and, his overall style of, being very, I don't want to say in your face, but just, this level of, this is how things are, and it's really, mean-spirited. How we reviewed The Killer on this series on Million Dollar Media, and that film is just hey, life sucks, and if you're gonna be a killer, you gotta be cold, you gotta be emotionless, and that's kind of what this film feels like, because at the beginning, they just, during the credits, they just kill off Newt, Hicks, Bishop, and we've come to find out that, oh yeah, Ellen Ripley's impregnated by a queen. ultimately that's the problem with this film where I'm like, why should I care about anything going on because I know how this is going to end.
Yeah.
There's no getting out of this situation. You fought as hard as you could, but guess what's going to happen in the end?
It's so nihilistic.
But that is also David Fincher's thing.
It is, and it's crazy because the only movie of his that doesn't devolve into abject nihilism is Fight Club because he adapted it from somewhere else.
Well, even then, if you heard about the guy who wrote Fight Club, like even then, it's just like, like. And admittedly, I do like a lot of David Fincher's work. I really like Zodiac. I think that's a really good film. Like, I think I like it more than Seven. That's a little controversial, but I think Seven is a good film. I mean, I don't like one particular person in that film.
You want to talk about goddamn nihilistic? Seven, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, right? But I like Zodiac more, even though that film is also like, hey, guess what? He never got found out.
Yeah. I think the issue is just that I don't feel like Fincher's general worldview and the aspect that he brings to narratives fits into Alien. And it feels like that sort of in-your-face nihilistic spite just... It's so at odds with everything else that this movie wants to do.
It is.
And it's just... I don't know. I think that the fact that this concluded the original trilogy of Aliens, and I do say the original trilogy, because there is technically a fourth movie that I would say, that some would say concludes Ellen Ripley's story. However, I'm conscientiously objecting to acknowledging it. So once again, I said this a couple videos ago. If you are of the sort of younger, skibbitier, I think that's what they say, generation,
I don't know.
Don't watch Alien Resurrection. Just don't do it.
We'll review it eventually, but
I won't.
Really? Don't leave me, Emily. Don't. But back to Alien 3. I'll mention some things that I like. I like the doctor character in this.
Right.
Character's name is Clemens. He's this guy who feels really guilty about the things that he did in his past regarding him getting drunk and operating on someone. You know, he feels like he should be here. And as soon as I said, you know what, I really like his character, they kill him off. So I'm like, fucking damn it. I'm mixed on the overall setting of this film.
Yeah.
Because I think it's interesting in concept of like this prison planet that all these prisoners feel like we're comfortable here. We've developed our own religion. We don't want to leave. We're just going to do our own thing. And when Ripley comes in, being a woman, they're automatically just like, I feel really weird about this. But that also leads to a lot of things of just like, of course we then have to have an attempted sexual assault scene that just kind of is just there to show like, at any moment these prisoners can turn on Ripley.
Yeah, and it's so odd because my opinion on violence in media is that if you're going to depict it, you have to be willing to engage with it. You can't use it for shock value, or else it comes off unbelievably tone deaf and disgusting. And you know, there are even things that I like that go into this issue. Like, you know, there's like a scene in one of the newer Tomb Raider games where Lara Croft almost gets sexually assaulted by a pirate. And
yep, I remember that being very controversial.
Yeah, and it's like, this is so unbelievably unnecessary.
Yeah.
And this movie falls into the exact same pitfall of it wants to use sexual assault for the shock value, but it doesn't actually have anything that it wants to do to engage with it in a real way. And it comes off feeling so irksome.
It also kind of feels
bothers me.
Derivative because, again, the whole Alien franchise itself has this weird pseudo-sexual nature to it. So the idea of like the alien being this penis-shaped monster chasing Ripley around, and then ultimately just to kind of be like, here, let me take this sledgehammer and beat you over the head with it.
Yeah, and it's just, it does not handle things in a way that is delicate or good at all.
There's one line that I thought was like, okay, you can actually read a little bit into that, where it's like she's sitting down with all of them in the mess hall, and she goes to sit down with like this, I forgot his name, but I really like the character. He says like, I'm a murderer and rapist of women. And then she's like, oh, okay. Well, then I must really terrify you. Admittedly, really cool line from her, because she's like, okay, well, if you're that and that's what brought you here, then you'd be totally afraid of me just being here right now.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's the part where I'm like, okay, I feel like they have something to say there, but they don't really go into it. Because admittedly, the general premise of like a woman being on this planet is inherently very scary. But then it's like, oh wait, this is also an alien film, so we then have to grow accustomed to all these characters. So it's like,
it's just,
how are we supposed to feel about these guys who are technically murderers and rapists? And it's not treated in like a Shawshank Redemption kind of way where it's just like, oh no, everybody here is, they've done something and we're supposed to care about them. It's like, it's treated like Aliens, which is like, oh no, these are all very distinct, really fleshed out, really nice characters.
yeah.
It's really weird film. Like, have you heard some of the other concepts they were supposed to do for Alien 3?
I have not.
So, after Aliens, they were like, where do we go with this? The one idea that they had was like, okay, let's bring it to Earth. We've been in space and on a different planet. Let's bring it back down to Earth. And that concept got thrown out. They even made a trailer for Alien 3 that said, you've seen it in space, you've seen it here, now everyone can hear you scream on Earth.
In 1979, we discovered in space, no one can hear you scream. In 1992, we would discover on Earth, everyone can hear you scream.
That would have been stupid. That tagline's dumb.
But it's like, okay, we're going to bring it to Earth. Not what they do in this film.
Right.
Then they had this idea that kind of gets elements in this film where they were going to have a planet that was this completely manufactured planet. I think they said it was like this wooden structure, like this big glass ball kind of planet, and it would be inhabited by monks, and Ripley's just kind of there, and it would be this lot of really interesting religious imagery.
That would have been more interesting. I would have preferred to watch that movie.
I like the idea of like a completely man-made planet. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Like the Weyland-Yutani company is this powerful because they can just make planets like this. They also had this idea where they were going to, instead of a movie that has Ripley as the focus, they were going to have a movie where it's Hicks and Bishop go on an adventure.
Sure.
And it was going to be like this base in space, like this giant civil like colony that lives out in space, and an alien gets in there and they have to save it. I think one idea was kind of like they were going to turn like the alien into like this Voltron kind of situation where it's like, oh, they can like combine together and make a bigger alien. And I'm like, no, don't do that.
Yeah. So most of the ideas for this movie were bad, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, so they were like, we don't know where to fucking go with this.
I feel like, wasn't this movie also stuck in production hell for a while?
There's that. It's also like David Fincher himself, he hates this film. He wanted his name off it and to have it be an Alan Smithy credit. They said no, and he's like, all right, fine, whatever. And that's why like the director's cut of this film isn't actually a director's cut. It's an assembly cut.
Yeah.
Because he's just like, fuck this film. He had a horrible time making it. They wouldn't let him do anything that he wanted to do. So to be fair, a lot of the problems with this film are because of creative differences and not the director's actual vision. However, as we stated before, there's a lot that is still very David Fincher about this film.
Yes, for sure.
Maybe everything that we do have problems with about nothing really being explored upon too much, maybe that is because like he never really got to say it to its full thing. But I highly doubt that in 1990, whatever the fuck, they would actually care about that.
Yeah. I also think it's Fincher, and he does have a proclivity for putting shocking things into his work.
He has stated, and I do not like it, but it's also like, fuck you for saying this. He has stated before that he thinks that all audience members are perverts.
I think people are perverts. I've maintained that. That's the foundation of my career.
So that's interesting, because if he had phrased this as, I make movies for perverts, I would totally be down with this thesis of like, there is sort of an attraction to seeing things in a movie that you couldn't see in real life. Like, I actually think that there's like something to be said there of like, we could explore the perversions of an audience because this is like a sort of created artistic space.
Yeah.
Like, that's a valid point. I think implying that that's how everyone engages with movies is weird. And speaks to like, you seem to be projecting a lot of yourself onto the average moviegoer.
But that's the problem I have with a lot of film Twitter, is just a lot of really big-headed film nerds thinking, oh, I like this kind of film, and this is the only kind of film that should be made, and fuck everything else because everybody else is an idiot.
Yeah.
And that's my problem with like a lot of these like auteurs.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
I had
just-
a funny conversation with a friend the other day
Mm-hmm.
who was telling me how much he hated the new Deadpool film. And I was like,
Oh.
well, why is that? And he was like, well, I just didn't really like the composition, and I felt like the narrative wasn't really there. And I was like, oh, well, I'm kind of excited to go see it. And he's like, why? It's not very good. And I was like, well, it's probably going to remind me of movies that I liked when I was a teenager. And, you know, that's kind of where the goalposts are for a movie like that for me. It's like
Yeah.
not everything has to be made with the same intentions or enjoyed the same way. Everybody is going to want something different and enjoy things on a different basis. And I think that it becomes a lot better, you know, kind of talking about film Twitter people, when you can enjoy a movie based on how well it is executing on the things it wants to do, rather than holding something to some kind of objective standard. That's just kind of part of what gets me with film Twitter, right? Is that people can't do that, and they're like, well, god damn, I don't know, the film Game Night was not as good as Casablanca. And I'm like, yeah,
No
because
shit.
they're entirely different movies. And if you just choose to enjoy things on the merit of, this is a movie that wants to be funny, I am going to go in and watch a movie expecting the movie to try and be funny and clever.
Mhm.
And then you go in and the movie is funny and clever. And even though it didn't meet an objective standard, it was being the best version of itself,
Yeah.
which is all that I can look for in movies.
Yeah.
And Alien 3 is not the best version of itself by a long shot.
No.
It feels like it had so much more ambition than it was able to execute on, probably too much ambition, and it does nothing.
Yeah, like apparently, just more behind the scenes stuff, just real quick. They made sets that never got used.
Yep.
And like, just look at the visual effects in the thing. They were way too ambitious for what they could do at the time.
Yeah.
Like
also,
Yeah.
I don't know what DP and the cinematographer were feeling about the color yellow, but I think that there needs to be some sort of separation there, because oh my god, this whole movie looks like a piss filter was put over it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what they were doing.
It just feels grimy and nasty, but not in like a good. I can't believe I'm saying it in a good way, but in a good way where it's like, oh, this is like an aesthetic that this film is going for, and it puts you in this mood. It just feels really much like, can someone take a shower?
Yeah. Like, can we?
Like, I know you
Can we
just
not?
took one, but can you take another one just to get it off the lens? I just gotta say one more thing because I kind of feel like we're kind of wrap this up real quick. I just gotta bring up one more behind the scene thing that I found was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So you know how we talked earlier about how this alien is, the xenomorph in this film is based off a dog?
Yeah.
So apparently, one of the first ideas they thought of, like, okay, alien dog, how are we gonna do this? Okay, well, what if we put a dog in an alien costume and see what that looks like? And they
That's-
filmed it.
Awesome.
And it's just as cringy and weird and hilarious as you think it could be, because it's this giant dick-shaped head on this fucking, I'm not good with dog breeds, but it's just like this really wiry looking dog. And it's just doing that thing. You know how dogs really like turn their heads wildly? It is hilarious. And the fact, I'll give them this, the fact that they were like, let's try it and see what it looks like. And admittedly, they were like, that looks like shit. We're not doing that. But then again, the ending result of this film looks like shit because there's moments where, like, I swear to God, I thought the alien was just straight up humping this dude.
Right.
Like, what is it doing? Like, it's just bad looking. Like, I know everybody talks about that scene, that really cool image of, like, the xenomorph getting right up in Ripley's face. But what no one likes to talk about is the fact that you see it walk up initially, and that looks bad.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, to be fair, the Alien franchise is no stranger to bad special effects. Like, you know, you want to talk about really funky special effects. The fucking scene at the end of the original film where Ripley vents the alien into the fucking space.
Okay.
And it's clearly a guy in just a rubber suit that looks nothing like the monster has looked for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And it just bounces around, just like,
Yeah.
and I think my favorite part is it's just T-posing the whole time. That's fair. I'll say, like, for a minute I was like, no, there's some pretty damn good special effects, but that one moment, yeah, that's a little silly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's all I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to bring that up because I saw that video online, like, that's funny.
Yeah.
But I was like, No, there's some really interesting videos out there going more in depth about the whole behind the scenes process of this film. That like I don't think we're have time or really all that much care or energy to talk about.
Yeah, it's just Alien 3 just takes the wind out of my sails, man. It's such a miserable experience, and not in like the fun horror movie way. In the sense of it's just sad to watch this franchise go out like that. And I can't believe that they never made more movies. You know, I really think that Alien 3 led to the sort of decline and eventual end of the franchise. I'm glad they didn't make prequels that over-explained things. I'm glad that they didn't make a movie with Joss Whedon involved, and I'm really excited to see the franchise come back after so long.
Yeah, I can't believe it either. I'm glad to see them come back with Alien Romulus. I mean, considering that the main subject matter of this video is being like sexual assault, and knowing what, you know, previous films Fede Alvarez did is a bit, you know,
Yeah,
gotta
I'll be
definitely
interested to see.
like, and the fact that they have admittedly said like there's a scene in this next film that's gonna gross people out. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah.
Knowing you, I'm like, not you, but the director, who I just go like a first-hand basis, like, yeah, you.
Yeah, Fede.
The things I'm worried about is that it's just going to go more shock factor. Like, so from all the trailers, it looks very visually pretty.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I'm excited to see Alien go back to. And they've said, like, hey, we went back to practical effects for the aliens,
Yeah.
but for the outside stuff, we're doing CG. And I think that's always the best case scenario.
I appreciate if this is what you were worried about. I couldn't. There is not going to be an actual sexual assault of any nature in the film. We do know this for a fact.
I don't know, because with the Alien, like
but we know this because it's not in the MPAA rating.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, it's just bloody, violent content and language.
I don't know, because there's one shot in that trailer that even in like if you see my reaction to the first trailer. There's a shot where, like, the face huggers, but it looks very suggestive.
Yes. No, I'm sure that the imagery will be there in spades, but I don't think anything graphic is going to be depicted. I think we can safely say that because they do have to put that in the MPAA rating. So I assume it will just be some sort of very violent death. I think that it could be very good. Mm-hmm. I am very much hopeful.
I also think that this could be really bad.
It could be really bad.
But I also am like, this is not the only Alien thing I'm looking forward to, because there's a TV show that they're going to be working on called Alien Earth.
Interesting. So are they actually going through with the...
Well, here's what I know about it. The creator of the TV show, or the writer, at least the showrunner, is Noah Hawley.
Who did Legion?
He did Legion, he did Fargo, and I think he did another thing, but I can't remember what it was. But he did those two things, and I really like those two things. So
yeah, that's a solid background.
Yeah, the only problem I have is the synopsis of the thing is that, oh, this is a film that takes place on Earth 30 years before the original Alien film, which I'm like, another fucking prequel. However, if it's that close and it's on Earth, I think it's just going to be a film or a series about why the Weyland-Yutani company gives a shit about finding these things.
Yeah, that would be my suspicion. But I always do like a little bit of expanding on the Weyland-Yutani, so I'm down.
Yeah, and like, I'll be very curious to see how that TV show does things. This is the last in this series of the Alien collection, and then maybe sometimes next year we'll finish it off with the other 3 movies in this franchise, which will be more fun for me.
Yes.
Because I get to witness Emily, her mind just implode.
Oh, good to talk about Prometheus.
Okay, then you'll see me just want to hit my head against the fucking wall. Okay, well...
Prometheus is fine. It's fine. It's a fine movie.
Alright.
Compared to Alien Covenant and Alien Resurrection, Prometheus is a mercy.
That's very true. Oh, man. Alright, well, I think that's all we really have to say about this. I mean, we talked a bit about how we're excited for the new Alien Romulus.
Yep. I hope they make Alien Remus next.
I think that would be the next best thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, is it? Romulus was always the better brother anyway. They did name the city after him and everything.
And an entire race of people in Star Trek. That's what I care about. I don't think about the Roman Empire.
Sure. Star Trek's my Roman Empire. All right, thank you for watching this video. You should share it on YouTube with your friends who want to hear us complain about Alien 3. You should be like, oh my god, check this guy's video out,
Mhm.
he and a friend complain about Alien 3 a bunch, and it's pretty cool.
Mhm.
You should also like this video because it'll boost us in the algorithm, and then
Mhm.
it's going to be more likely that we'll make videos like this one directly to your ears.
Mhm.
And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this one. And subscribe to our Patreon. Our Patreon's pretty great. It has all of our audios to these videos unedited, so you could hear every time Max says something that would get him canceled. It's on the Patreon. Like you can listen to that and then make very angry tweets at him. So I recommend you do that. It's just $5 a month. And thank you for watching.
Have a good day. Bye.